So we talk a lot about the neurological connection or our connection with respiration and the brain. And it's an important one because although this is not new world type of thinking, it is kind of the research and such are really coming round full circle and explaining or showing us that the connection is really there, and by that I mean we now know that there are dedicated areas in the brain that are set up for respiration, and these are largely kicked on. So we breathe because of chemoreceptors that are set up via the vasculature in the brain, and those receptors are connected to dedicated areas in the brain, but that when we're on, that's how we breathe. But we're finding out, and Rob Wilson's doing a lot of research around this right now, is we're actually seeing that there are actually other components when we're like in deep sleep that are triggering us to breathe. So I'm not going to get into that one, but the large part about what we want to understand with the neurological connection to respiration in the brain is that when CO2 levels are high, the brain triggers in an automatic way for us to breathe, right? Whether that's exhale or inhale. And dependent on our relationship with CO2, meaning if I am intolerant to CO2, I'm actually going to breathe sooner or quicker, right? And if I am sensitive to CO2, that means I have a trigger warning that creates probably some, rather difficult or hard things around when CO2 gets high. I have memories or things that are associated with that, and I can actually respond pretty poorly to that high or that response from the CO2 rising when it's actually not even that high. So this is where it becomes important, along with everything else, in order to learn to adapt to a higher level of CO2 or a better level of CO2 tolerance, so that we can actually slow down that respiration, develop a better relationship with CO2, and create better habits with that. And what we know is that, basically, and there's a few studies out there on this that explain how people who deal with higher levels of anxiety have really poor relationships with CO2. And so this is where we want to actually really work at getting that connection with the brain and how we cross paths with emotions and stress and pain and all these things. Those cross paths right with that respiration center. And so getting better at actually creating a relationship with the CO2, which is triggering respiration, and my emotions or my stress and my pain actually can help with how I'm breathing.